Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 4 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com as well. And as always, Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM in Metro Atlanta, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. And a shout out to their station manager, Ryan O'Neill, for having my show on his station 5 nights a week as well. Guys, I'm looking forward to this show today. This guest of mine is a friend of mine, and he's also making his record 7th appearance on Live with CDP Sports Talk in 3 years. And his name is Pat Gregoire, and he's the color analyst for the Halifax Thunderbirds of the NLL, and he's also the analyst for the TSN Game of the Week, and he's also with Cool Bet Canada as well. And looking forward to speaking to Pat about the National Lacrosse League season and the playoffs, and obviously the finals rematch between the Colorado Mammoths, the defending champions, taking on those Buffalo Bandits starting this Saturday night. Good afternoon, Pat. How you doing?
Doing great, Chris. It's NLL Finals week. Couldn't be more excited to get going down in Buffalo for Game 1, but excited to be back on the show. Pretty crazy. You said record-breaking time on the show, but every single time I'm on the program, have a lot of fun.
And there's some NLL news this morning, if you'd like to share it with our audience as well. I put it on the ticker as well.
Yes, good friend of mine, a mentor of mine, and also my fellow co-host, Teddy Jenner, winning the Tom Borelli Media Person of the Year award. A very well-deserving win for Teddy. It's his second time winning the award, joining a few other gentlemen that have been multi-award winners. I was also up for the award, but I won it last year. I couldn't be more happy for Teddy for winning it. And Adam Levy as well. I know he was on the show. Very deserving. If it was either of those gentlemen, I would have been very, very happy with those guys winning. Both do such a great job growing this awesome game in the media.
I wasn't able to watch the game Saturday night, obviously, between Colorado, Calgary, because I was covering a basketball game in London, a championship game there Saturday night. Thoughts on Colorado's win over Calgary and winning that series in 3 games briefly?
Well, it just goes to show you that, like many sports, there's just some teams that are built for the postseason, and that certainly is the case with Colorado. We're now seeing them going back to the finals after what was kind of a disappointing regular season. But this is a team that just was focused on getting into the postseason. They trust that the way that they're coached, the way that they are built from their goaltender out to their defense and some big time players that come up in big moments on their offense, they're able to get it done. And I thought Calgary at the start of the playoffs was the team to beat, just based off. And I know you look at a team like San Diego, who Colorado eventually knocked off. I thought Calgary just from top to bottom had a team that was going to be able to match against every team in the West. Unfortunately, they run into an absolute mammoth, no pun intended, of a team in Colorado, and a masterfully done job. It seems like this team, doesn't matter what the score is, they're never out of it. Going into last game, they only led for about 3 minutes in the entire series, but still managed to be tied 1-1. They're just a team that finds ways to win. And I know this Buffalo Bandits team, certainly a hungry team, probably the most dominant performance I've ever seen in a conference finals before.
Really? And all the time you've been watching lacrosse?
Absolutely. It was remarkable to see what they were able to do on both sides of the ball. But with all that being said, we saw what Colorado was able to do to that Buffalo offense. I'm not saying it's going to be a repeat, but I think Buffalo does have their work cut out for them. They're going to have to get to that next level of their offensive play to beat Dylan Ward in this defense.
I was at that regular season game where Colorado beat them 13-9, and they did a great job shutting down that Bandits offense. I believe in the second half of that game, they only allowed one Bandit goal, I believe, if my memory is correct. And I think Colorado matches up well with Buffalo, and I can see this series going 3 games again as well. Obviously, Buffalo will probably be the favorites, even though they aren't the defending champions. But and one thing I wanted to mention too, Pat, it's just amazing. Like Colorado 500, whatever, not a great regular season, but look at in the NHL, the Florida Panthers, the number 8 seed, the Miami Heat, the number 8 seed. It just shows you in sports, just get to the playoffs and anything can happen.
Totally. And that's certainly the case with those two teams you mentioned. It Panthers, obviously a team that's built for success in the postseason. You look at the goaltending that they have with Bobrovsky. He's dialing back the clock, has been playing so well. They have guys that can score. They got guys that can play gritty. And then you look at Miami, Jimmy Butler, truly a playoff type of player that can will your team to victory. That's kind of the same way with this Mammoth team. You've got a great goalie in Dylan Ward. He wasn't up for goaltender of the year, and to be honest, wasn't his best regular season. But when it matters the most, when it comes to the playoffs, he is proving why he is one of the best goalies on the planet, bar none. And then you look at some of those guys up front, like having a healthy Ryan Lee is huge for this Mammoth offense. Everything goes through him. He's the playmaker. He's the straw that stirs his drink. But then you have other players like Zed Williams, another guy that elevates his game in the postseason. Connor Robinson, another huge, deadly outside attack. And then Eli McLaughlin, who's slowly becoming one of the most clutch performers in the National Lacrosse League. So you put all that together on top of how elite they are out the back end and in between the pipes. There's a reason why they're able to compete in the tough stages that is the NLL playoffs.
How's Buffalo's health right now? I know during the regular season they had some guys banged up, especially one of my favorites, Nanico. But how do they look like health wise going into the series?
Well, I know Chase Fraser left the game late in game 2. I heard a bit of that was precautionary. Haven't had a chance to talk to Coach John Tavares just yet. We'll talk to him a little bit later in the week and get an injury update. As far as I know, a lot of bumps and bruises. Hopefully nothing that's going to keep anyone out of the lineup for game 1, but definitely no doubt there's some guys, especially on the back end, that are dealing with some injuries. But Chris, as you know, with all sports, when you get to the end of the playoffs, almost everyone is hurt. Maybe not necessarily injured, but guys have bumps and bruises that they're dealing with. So as far as I know, injury report hasn't come out. It doesn't sound like anything's going to keep anyone out of that lineup, but they are dealing with some nicks, which them winning in 2 games and having that week off last week, probably massive for this group. I know they still practiced, they still prepared, they were watching to see who they're going to play against. So not necessarily an off week from practicing and preparation, but enough to give some of those guys some rest to get ready for game 1.
Okay. There was something I was going to ask you. Oh yeah, now I remember. I should have wrote it down, Pat. But you want to give your podcast a plug for anybody that's watching or listening to this show today, where they can find your podcast show?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, as I mentioned before, it's myself and Teddy Jenner. It's called the Off the Crossbar podcast. Teddy's been running it for a few years now. I hopped on last year. And if you want to follow us on social, it's at OTCB_podcast on Twitter and OTCB podcast on Instagram. It usually drops once a week. We usually go over what happened the week before and then preview what's coming up this week. We usually have either a coach or a player or some sort of lacrosse media members we've talked to as well, kind of diving in on what the upcoming week and things that have happened. But obviously with this week, with the NLL finals, it's going to be a heavy focus on game 1 and game 2, which we get it's unique this year for the playoffs. We're getting the same weekend games, which I actually really enjoy. I think it keeps fans engaged. So usually they'll drop on Thursday mornings, sometimes obviously with our busy travel schedule, both of us working for TSN on these calls for the game. Sometimes they get bumped to a Friday, but we will be dropping a podcast this week. So if you follow us, or if you subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you'll get a notification when each and every podcast drops. And after the NLL season, we're going to continue rolling out. We might take a little hiatus, but we'll be talking everything about summer ball, whether it's in the WLA, the Western Lacrosse Association, which Teddy is super involved in, the Junior A loops in BC, Alberta, and here in Ontario, or Major Series Lacrosse, which I know you had an opportunity to cover as Six Nations Chiefs game last year. So some great quality lacrosse there. And of course, Teddy and I have been involved with the draft for the last few years as well. So as we approach the draft in September, we'll talk to some prospects, talk to some coaches, see what they're looking forward to the draft. Because that's honestly one of my favorite events of the year. I love doing draft coverage. There's so many great prospects coming into this league. And I think this year could be one of the best drafts we've seen in many years.
Okay. And all the NLL final games will be on TSN, correct? Obviously ESPN, but TSN, you guys will be doing all of them.
Yeah, game 1, 2, and if necessary, 3 will be on TSN. You can also get it on TSN Plus. And then south of the border, I do believe both game 1 and game 2 are on ESPN2 and possibly ESPNU. And the unique thing for this weekend and why the NLL targeted this weekend, I think I may have discussed this on this program, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. It is the NCAA Final Four this week in Philadelphia. The Division I, Division II, Division III finals are going on. On Saturday, it's the semifinals. So they're going to get a roll in from the semifinal game into game 1. And then on Monday, it is Memorial Day weekend in the U.S. So Monday, obviously a holiday. And traditionally, every single year, the D1 finals is on that Monday afternoon. So luckily for Colorado, being an American team, being a holiday, the league is going to have that roll in. So after the D1 finals, the NLL Game 2 finals will be there. So that's also to try, because as you know, Chris, here up in Canada, in the northern states of the U.S., Western New York, obviously we're seeing in Colorado, box lacrosse, very popular. But there are a lot of areas in the United States that are very, very involved and interested in field lacrosse, but haven't had the opportunity to see box lacrosse or haven't had a really up close and personal look. So this is an opportunity to get some of those lacrosse fans or even casual sports fans that are just tuning into NCAA lacrosse, to get them now to see the box lacrosse game and that product. And I truly believe if you're a fan of field lacrosse, why wouldn't you be a fan of box lacrosse? It's faster. It's higher scoring normally. You're getting more scoring opportunities, much more physical, in your face. It's a great product, and I think it's a great opportunity for the NL to continue to grow in the United States.
If I was a coach, I wouldn't be too happy about this because this is 2 championship games in less than 48 hours. If they had to do the Monday game, Pat, which I understand, couldn't they have started this series Friday night in Buffalo instead of Saturday night to give the teams an extra day to rest? Because you know this, covering the league, these guys are professional athletes and they obviously have to be in great shape, but it's a physical mental demanding sport. So what's your thoughts on this series starting on a Saturday night and then on a Monday afternoon?
So to be quite honest, I think you've got to look at it at an overall growth perspective. And I think the NLLPA has looked at that. I know, yes, would you like to have a couple of extra days to rest? For sure. But I think it's to capture the best possible viewing. Because again, one, as I mentioned, you're going to get that viewership from ESPN coming in on after those semifinal games. But also, I know the Bandits draw great, and you could put a game any night of the week, and the Bandit land is going to show up in full force. But I think you're going to get your best crowd on a Saturday evening. That is where you're going to get the best fans. So Ideally, sure. I'm sure they would like to start on that Friday and have a couple of extra days. But these guys are pros. These guys are in great shape. They're going to have, they're going to travel. They're going to be able to get through this. It's obviously going to be tougher. But we're seeing, NHL players. They play back-to-backs during the regular season. During the playoffs, obviously no back-to-backs, but 1 or 2 nights rest in between. So
Yes.
again, probably not ideal. But for the overall growth of the league, where they are right now, I think you have to take short-term sacrifice for long-term success, because I do believe that having these roll-ins, especially down in the States on ESPN, it is so big. And yes, a week off, great for these guys to rest and get back at things. But having an NLL finals last year over 3 straight weeks, like, it just felt way too drawn out. It is so difficult for fans to stay engaged. I think the shorter turnaround really helps that fan engagement. It helps bring in new eyes, because if someone watches on Saturday and they have to wait a whole nother week and they're not really a hardcore lacrosse fan, they might forget about it. They might forget about it.
2 other points I wanted to bring up with you on this, Pat,
Sure.
before we get into the keys to a win for either team. How long is the flight from Buffalo to Colorado? And is there any possibility they could eventually make this a best of 5? Obviously, maybe best of 7 is not feasible, but to me, a best of 3, I really think best of 5 would be perfect for the NL finals.
So great question about the flight time. I haven't got my flight details yet for the finals, so I don't know the exact time, but I do believe it's just under about 4 hours. So a 4 hours flight from Buffalo to Denver. I know that there's probably not a ton of flights available from them, so they might even have to do a layover. I'm not too sure. I haven't really heard the details at that point, but let's just call it around a 4-hour flight. Could it go to a 5-game series? Absolutely. I think that is the end goal eventually for the National Lacrosse League. I think they would like to get to that point. I think that it's going to take a little bit longer, though. Maybe a couple more teams, at least one more team in the league. I think maybe once it gets to a point where these guys are full-time players, where they have games on a Thursday, and we're seeing more Monday games, things like that, where you can, again, you don't want to spread out too much. They have to deal with a few other things that other leagues don't have to deal with. The PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League, which a lot of players play in both. They don't want to bleed into that schedule. Of course, they would like to not have to worry about that. But again, at this point, these players are playing in both leagues. They have to kind of coexist with that other existing league. They don't want to go too far into the summer. They feel like that start of June mark is really, really strong. The more you bleed in the summer, the longer it kind of drains out. So I think for sure 3 of 5 would be a beautiful to see these guys go 5 games. Absolutely. I think it'd be great, but it's got to get to a point where, again, they're okay with playing maybe a Friday and a Sunday, and then the following Saturday and Monday, whatever it may be. I think we could see that. I don't think it's going to happen in the near future, maybe in a few years. But certainly it is on the minds of the National Lacrosse League to try to beef up this playoff schedule.
I had Brian Shanahan on my podcast show a couple weeks ago, and I agree with him. I said, once this league gets to a 16-team league, right now it's 18 regular season games. It would be nice one day to have a 32-game season, 16 home and 16 road. To me, that would be a perfect number, and maybe in the next 5 years that could happen possibly.
I think for sure. I think that's probably a long-term goal for the National Lacrosse League. I wouldn't even be surprised if we bump it up to 2 more games and get to 20 at some point, and each team gets an extra home and away game. I really think that will probably be the next step. And then a 32 could certainly be a possibility. I know the old commissioner, Nick Sakevich, really wanted to have, an 82 game schedule at some point. Of course, that was looking more like a 10 to 15 year plan. With how physical the game of lacrosse is, I don't know if you could do a full 82. I think you nailed nailed it on the head. I think 32 games would be perfect. But again, I think you are also right. It's still a little bit away, but definitely a long-term goal the NLL should be, and I think they are looking at.
And the attendance this year went up as well for across the National Lacrosse League. So
Yeah,
they're making progress.
100%. They really are, and I think Some of those numbers are certainly inflated with some of the great organizations like the Buffalo Bandits, the Colorado Mammoth, the two teams that are still around. Calgary, outstanding crowds. Toronto and Hamilton certainly got a ton of momentum there. And there's some other teams around the league, but I do believe, honestly, that the NLL should be thinking long and hard about some of these other struggling franchises and how they can help out, really kind of do an analysis of how long can they keep trying some of these teams that are struggling immensely to get butts and seats. So again, I really think that Brett Frood, the new commissioner, has a great vision. He's kind of more of a wait and see approach rather than coming in right away and making a bunch of changes and making his mark. Year one is more of a check things, see what's working, what's not working. And then I think we'll see a much more busier offseason for the commissioner and this NLL front office staff. I agree with you. I think 16 teams is perfect. They don't need to add more. I would love to see them get another team in the West, maybe relocate a couple of the teams that are struggling right now. Not necessarily next year or the following year. I'm talking more of let's say a 5-year window. Really try to make sure from top to bottom that the entire league is healthy before you start looking at those bigger goals. Make sure the 16 teams you have, and of course, you're not going to have 16 Buffaloes. That's just not possible. It would be amazing if you had 16 teams that could have 14 plus every single regular season game and almost sell out every single playoff game. That'd be amazing. They're not at that point yet. And I don't think you can have those unrealistic expectations. But if you can get to a point where all 16 teams are healthy, they're thriving, they're doing great, then that's when you can start thinking about expanding the schedule to 32, having these players being full-time players. And I think that's going to then be that next level of evolution of professional lacrosse in the NLL.
Two other points I wanted to make. New York and Georgia, long term. New York is a big market and stuff like that, but there's so much competition there. And Georgia, I don't know. What's your thoughts quickly on New York and Georgia long term as lacrosse league franchises?
New York's tough. You mentioned, obviously, there's so much going on in that area, but they are on Long Island, so there is a little bit less. Yes, sure, you're still dealing with some college teams, and you're obviously dealing with the Islanders. But it is a historic area for the game of lacrosse, more field lacrosse though, but there is some box lacrosse history there. I think that with Jeff Teat in that market, I do think that there is a possibility that you can eventually tap into that market and grow it. In terms of Georgia, it's kind of been the same that we've seen it's in the last few years. I know they have a very passionate fan base down there, but it is a little bit smaller. I'm curious to see. There is a lot of rumblings on potentially the NHL going back to Atlanta, which is absolutely crazy considering it's already happened twice and they've moved twice. But I don't know, maybe if there's a new arena built there, just because it's outside of downtown Georgia. So for me, again, that one's tricky. They've got great ownership there. John Arlotta does a really great job. They've got a great core. It would be really sad to see them leave a very rabid fan base. But with that being said, I don't know how much growth, how much better they can do than they're already doing right now. They have Lyle Thompson, one of the best players on the planet. If he's not bringing in fans, I don't know what will. And again, not to say that they're not bringing in fans. It's just it's not on a consistent level, and it's not probably where the league wants them to be. I'd say maybe you give them a couple more years, see what happens. And then obviously, I don't think John Arlotta is going anywhere. I don't think he's going to sell his team. If anything, he would probably move his team somewhere else.
Well, let's hope it works in Georgia as well, because like I said, it doesn't look good for a league if you got franchises constantly moving. You need stability, but there is a point where you get to say enough's enough. Look at the Coyotes, which they should have been out of there years ago. So just keep our fingers keep our fingers crossed as well. Pat, since I got you on here, what were your thoughts overall on this 2023 National Lacrosse League season? What teams kind of surprised you, and what are a few teams that kind of disappointed you so far?
It's a great question, Chris. Overall thoughts, I thought, again, another outstanding season. I thought last year was probably the best NLL season that we saw in a long time. And this year followed up with just as great as a season. I really, really thought we saw, a lot of great players rise to the top. Seeing what we saw from Jeff Teat in just his second year, I think it's safe to say that, a star is born in Jeff Teat, and everything that we were advertised came true. This is a generational talent. This is a guy that is doing things we've never seen before. Dane Smith continues to just put up historic season after historic season, breaking his own records. And then even this was kind of like the year of the goaltender. Christian Del Bianco of Calgary up for an MVP. I think he's probably going to win, and I think he's going to win the goaltender of the year. But then you look at guys like Nick Rose, who stepped up his game in the regular season, one of his best, if not his best season ever. Matt Vince continues to be an elite goaltender. And Brett Dobson up for the rookie of the year, really struggled at the start of the year. But when that Georgia team went on a run, he was the backbone and really shined. I thought he was outstanding. In terms of teams that surprised, in a good way, I would say, I think you'd probably have to look at that Georgia team, the way that they started out 0-7 and were almost into the postseason. Pretty remarkable to see them bounce back like that. I think Calgary, I thought that at the start of the year, I thought they'd be a playoff team. I didn't think they would set franchise records for most wins in a single season. I mean, this is a team that lost Curtis Dixon, their leading goal scorer, their captain, just a year removed from losing their previous captain in Dane Dobbie, another offensive threat. But just Kurt Malowski did such a great job with this team, really getting the most out of them. Obviously, they fell short of their ultimate goal to get to the NLL finals, but no doubt, very impressive season for them. I think a lot of people thinking Panther City making the postseason was a bit of a surprise. I had them just on the outside looking in the playoff race. But again, I'm not really surprised with what they did. I thought they would be battling for a playoff spot, and that's kind of what happened with them. Surprises that were negatives. Saskatchewan missing the playoffs for the second straight year is dumbfounding to me. When you look at the roster on offense, they still have playmakers. They still have some of the best talent in the league. They're a little bit older, yes, no doubt, but they underperformed defensively. I love their defense, and I think their defense actually did play really well. It's a great blend of veterans Ryan Dilks, their captain, Kyle Rubish, a perennial standout on defense, a future Hall of Famer, no doubt. And then you have some young guys coming into their own that played really well. Ryan Barnable, a rookie, was outstanding. I thought that they have a team that you can build around. Their biggest issue was goaltending. Alex Bouquet started out hot. He fizzled out. They weren't really able to figure things out. They went with Lane Rushka, who's the first homegrown product from Saskatchewan, to get in the net play. He did really well, but I don't know if he's the goalie of the future. I think going forward, they're going to have to figure out what's going on in between the pipes if they want to continue as one of these top franchises, which they are off the floor. You look at their sales. Of course, ticket sales are a little bit down there, but that's also when you miss the postseason 2 years in a row, fans are obviously going to get disappointed. I think there's going to be a lot of changes there. I think that they're going to still want to win. It's a new ownership group, just their second season. They do not want to miss the playoffs once again. So I think we see some big changes there. Some familiar faces will leave town, but I still don't think they're going to be blowing it up and tanking for the next couple of years. I think they're going to want to get back into the playoffs and back to their winning ways. I really thought New York was going to take a step with Jeff Teat. We saw Jeff Teat take that next step, but I thought we would expect more from them. I thought their defense underperformed. Their goaltending was a mess all season long. They didn't figure it out until they brought in Dunkerley from Saskatchewan. He ended up being a great story, but they were disappointing me. I thought they would at least be battling for a playoff spot, and they just weren't there. With that being said, when you have a franchise player like Jeff Teat, I think they would be crazy to give up on him and trade him over the next couple of years. But with that being said, you can't waste those years. It's like a Connor McDavid with the Oilers continuing to miss out on winning cups. Well, these guys aren't even getting to the playoffs. Yes, I know it's only been 2 years, but next year, I think it has to be a playoff appearance for this group. You cannot waste the years of a generational talent like Jeff Teat. So I think we'll see some big moves there. I think they're going to bulk up their back end. I think they think that Dunkerley is their goalie of the future. We'll see what happens there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in maybe 1 or 2 players to play alongside Jeff Teat as well.
Okay. And I was going to say, Rochester got off to a good start this year. They came back to earth, but overall, it was a good season for the Nighthawks. And also, Halifax. I just thought this team could have been better than what they were. I don't know. To me, what were your thoughts on Rochester, Halifax, and also the Toronto Rock after getting swept by the Bandits? And this wasn't even a series; they just blew them out. Is there going to be some major changes with the Toronto Rock in the offseason?
So we'll start with Rochester, of
Yeah.
course. How could I have forgotten them as one of the surprises? For sure. And you mentioned them faltering near the end of the year. I think that kind of took away some of the shine off what a great season it was. And it's unfortunate that it has got to that case because, again, full credit to that group. Dan Carey, the general manager, Mike Hazen, really getting a ton out of his group. But unfortunately, the wheels just fell off, and it was a really ugly finish. They got smoked against their rival in the Bandits, 20-8 in round 1. So I think they've got to be happy. They've got to be proud of what they accomplished. They took that next step. And again, I had them competing for a playoff spot. I didn't think that they would be making the postseason. But again, I guess where the record finished was pretty close to what I thought. It's just when you start out that hot and finish, It kind of takes away from it. Now, Halifax is interesting. It's intriguing. They're a team that I think is very close to being an elite team and up with the top teams like the Torontos, the Buffaloes in the East. It's just, for me, they're a bit old. They have some older guys on that roster. Ryan Benesh has announced that he wants to come back and play, which is great. Cody Jamieson, this guy alongside Benesh, both future Hall of Famers, first ballot, no doubters, 2 of the greatest players to ever play the game. Like when you look back at their careers and what they've been able to accomplish, it's remarkable. But they do have to make some decisions. If those 2 guys are coming back, I think you got to get faster on that left-hand side because those 2 guys are a little bit of slower players. And I think teams really, really picked them apart, whether it's in transition, taking advantage of that slower left side and pushing the ball from that side, or those guys not being able to be as quick as Foot and causing turnovers in vulnerable spots and pushing transition from that area. I think their right side is super dynamic. Austin Shanks doesn't have a contract. I think he's probably going to end up with a local team just due to him being a firefighter in Toronto. The travel's really tough for him, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him on Toronto. Maybe you see him on Buffalo or Rochester, somewhere in that Golden Horseshoe area. I think you see him there. But besides that, their righties are set. Randy Stotts was unbelievable this year. He really elevated that offense. Clark Peterson, a great player. Chris Boucher, career year. So I think the righties are set. I think the lefties need to figure something out. And I know a big question mark for this Halifax team was their goaltender in Warren Hill. And he had a really off season last year. Kind of struggled at the gate at the start of this year. And I think a lot of people were thinking, okay, Halifax is going to probably go out and try to get a goalie next year. We saw them go for an offer sheet with Doug Jamieson of Albany. Nothing came of that. They obviously matched. But down the stretch, especially in that playoff game against Toronto, Warren Hill kept him in that game. He was outstanding. He really blossomed into that goalie that we saw from that COVID-shortened season. So would I be surprised if they go out and get a different goalie, alongside Hutchison, who's their backup, and who some of the people in that organization think it might be their goaltender of the future? Possibly. But with the way that Warren Hill played down the stretch, I think he deserves another chance. I think you've got to give him because every time this year where you thought, okay, maybe he's not the guy, he came up in the clutch and played so well for them down the stretch. I think he's a legitimate starter in the NLL. I think he's a guy that you can win with. He just needs to keep that consistency from game 1 to game 18. And maybe because they have Hutchison now, who is a reliable backup, maybe it's the workload that's a bit too much for Hutchison. Maybe we see he'll only start 16 games or 15 games and allow Hutchison to take a little bit of that load because you can trust him. That way he doesn't burn out down the stretch, which we didn't see him do this year, but we've seen him do in previous years.
And just quick thoughts on the Toronto Rock. They've had some really good teams the last couple of years, and obviously last year they were so close to beating the Bandits, and that. But this year they were outscored 31-13.
Yeah.
And just thoughts on the status of the Rock, and they still made an announcement about where they're going to play their games for the next 3 years.
Still no announcement. Let's get into the raw bones of the roster, and we can talk about that situation after. But the Toronto Rock's a tricky one for me. They were my preseason pick to win the championship, and then after a little bit of a slow start, you could argue they were the most balanced team. You look at the goaltending with Nick Rose; he elevated his game. The defense, up until that final series. Bar none, the best D in the league. You look at that entire roster just filled with outstanding all-star defenders, and the offense was contributing. That was the question mark. How much can the offense contribute? Well, they were shooting the lights up. For me, it comes down to a couple things. One, Tom Schreiber was not healthy. Even in game one when he played, he was not healthy. The Bandits were beating up on him, and you could see it was bothering him. Game two, didn't play. The offense just looked completely different. So are they too reliant on Tom Schreiber? That is definitely a valid argument. And I tend to think yes, especially when you go up against some of these elite defenses like Buffalo. Schreiber was in the lineup. They completely shut down the left side. In game one, not one lefty scored, I don't think. And I don't think they scored a single transition goal. Corey Small is a great shooter. He is a catch and shoot guy, but he's not a ball carrier. Dan Craig certainly took his level to the next game this year. But is he a number one lefty? I don't know. We really don't know at this point. And Zach Mann struggled with some consistency. I would love to see them go out and get a legitimate number one lefty, a guy that can be that ball carrier, a guy that can balance the floor with Tom Schreiber. I think that would be great. And then you have Dan Craig as your second lefty. That is great depth. Because I think of the world of Dan Craig. I think he is an outstanding player, such an underrated talent in this league. He does so much more than just score goals and get assists, grabs loose balls. He'll go back and reverse transition, play defense. He's an absolute warrior for them. But I do believe they need some floor balance. I think that is what has really plagued them in some of these games because they're just so reliant on the outside shot. And the Bandits basically invited them to. They packed it in tight, on off ball, blocked shots, got in lanes. They did play a little bit aggressive on ball, but they allowed those shots from the outside, and Matt Vince or the defense just blocked it, ate it up, and really Toronto just had no answer. So for me, I think they've got to balance out that floor. I like the defense, although they did not look great against Buffalo, but Buffalo was just firing on all cylinders. Toronto didn't look like themselves. They were playing on their heels. They weren't getting out, playing aggressive. They weren't pushing the ball in transition. So I don't think we see too many moves on the back end. Maybe a guy like Greg Downing might retire. Maybe you move a younger piece to bring in another veteran, or maybe you ship out a veteran to get a little bit younger. But I don't think the defense was at fault. Yeah, Nick Rose didn't play his best lacrosse in those two games, but it certainly wasn't his fault. I definitely think you run it back and you don't really panic. But maybe bringing in another lefty would be the play that I think Jamie Dawick should do to improve this roster. I think they're close. I really do. They played their two worst lacrosse games of the season in the two worst spots, and they just ran into a team that was better than them in the Buffalo Bandits. It's simple as that.
No chance of a coaching change with the Rock?
No, I don't think so. I think Matt Sawyer is very much safe. Again, I don't know what much more Toronto could have done. Really, I don't know. I really don't know. I just think that they were outmatched when it came to their offense, especially with Tom Schreiber out. They just had no answers for them. And I don't think this is a coaching problem. Now, maybe if they find themselves losing to Buffalo again next year, maybe there's a coaching change. But I think Matt Sawyer and his staff have done just such a great job over the last couple of years. I feel like that would be a panic move or a move just to make a move. Whereas I think you trust the process, you trust this group, you make a couple of tweaks, and you bring in a big name, a big stick on that left side, run it back that way, and see what happens.
Okay. We're going to get back to the NL finals now.
Sure.
Pat, we've already brought up the rematch between Colorado and Buffalo. This is the third time in their history, 2006, and obviously last year Colorado was won twice. Quick thoughts on it, and what are some keys to a Mammoth repeat as champion? And also, what are some keys for a Bandit victory for the first time since 2008? And do you feel this was John Tavares' best coaching job this year due to some adversity and some key injuries to the Bandits, and also losing Connor Fields to Rochester as well?
Yeah, so a lot to unpack there, but we'll start with the rematch of the finals. Yes, can't wait. This is awesome. The finals last year was so great. I think you have two of the best fan bases going head to head, and you have obviously a Buffalo team that year after year, one of the best regular season teams, one of the best offensive groups that we've ever seen in a regular season. Dane Smith and Josh Byrne, the best 1-2 punch offensively in the NLL. But they haven't been able to get over the hump. Is this the year that they do it? Really, they didn't do too many changes. I mean, they bring in Brandon Robinson, of course, obviously was a great pickup, but he is out for the year. Their offense very much is the same. A lot of the same cast of characters. Their defense, though, over the last few weeks, especially in the playoffs, have stepped up their game immensely. The goaltending, no doubt. You have two of the best to ever do it in Dylan Ward and, of course, Matt Vince. From the Colorado side, this is a team, again, we talked about it, barely makes the playoffs, but they start playing their best lacrosse when they need to. I can't wait for this. Keys to the series, I think you got to go with a very similar game plan that worked for them in the finals. And that was, dictate where those Buffalo shots come from. Allow those shots to come from the top, from the outside. Let Dylan Ward see everything. When you allow those guys to dictate pace, allow them to dodge downhill and start attacking off the east-west swing, that's where they're going to hurt you. That's really where, when you allow them to spread you out. Don't get caught off ball. Got to pack it in off ball, play aggressive on ball. Don't allow Dane Smith and Josh Byrne to dictate pace. I think those are the two keys to victory. Offensively, you don't need to run and gun and match Buffalo goal for goal or get into that transition battle. I think you slow it down on offense. You take your chances when they come, and don't fall into what Toronto fell into, falling in love with that outside shot. Because what Buffalo will do is they'll give out those outside shots, which feels like it's a good opportunity and it's a great take. But in fact, that's exactly what Buffalo wants. That's exactly where Matt Vince wants to see the ball. He wants to see everything down the alleys, and he will force, and the defense will force you to take those shots. You just can't allow that to happen. You can't fall into that trap. So get to the middle, spread out Buffalo, try to spread them up as much as possible, and take your chances there. For Buffalo, it's kind of the flip side. I think you have to get the most out of Dane and Josh and the surrounding cast. Can't fall into that trap, similar to what I was just saying with Buffalo. Dictate the pace. Really stretch out that defense. Attack. And I think for Buffalo is don't worry about the past. Don't care. It does not matter that this is a team that beat you last year. It does not matter that you lost to Calgary in 2019. It doesn't matter when the last time you won a championship. It doesn't matter. What's done is done. It's about the moment now. And this is an opportunity to Buffalo to leave their mark with a great franchise, because there's no doubt that this group has accomplished some great things in the regular season. But when you look at their playoff success with that roster, it's a failure. And that's not the legacy that Dane Smith wants to leave. He has said multiple times to myself or, on podcast, whether it may be, he'll trade in any MVP award, any scoring title, any record that he's broke for an NLL championship. He wants to bring the NLL Cup home to Buffalo. And I think that him and Josh are going to have to be the game changers. But of course, like you mentioned, Nanakoke, Fraser, Cloutier, those guys are going to have to step up too, because there's going to be a ton of pressure and a ton of defensive game planning around those two guys. So it's up to those other guys to step up in big moments as well.
Like Chase Frazier, if he plays, Chris Cloutier, and also one of my favorites, Tahoga Nanakoke, who I think is the heart.
Yeah, he's a huge part of this offense. And there's no doubt that when you look at Nanticoke, he crashes, he bangs. He's a guy that gets to the inside of the floor, and that's what they need, right? They can't settle for those outside shots. He's going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups, take those, score those big goals. I think a key to it as well is a hot start in game one. Yes, we saw that in last series, but I think the big difference maker for sure, no doubt, is going to be the cast of characters. And I think, getting that hot start, winning in game one, and keeping that momentum going into game two is going to be huge as well.
How much pressure is there on John Tavares to get this team over the hump? And do you think this is one of his best coaching jobs this year?
It really is, especially when you look at what Tavares was able to do with this team. You like you mentioned it. Nanticoke was out for a good chunk of the season. Chase Fraser was out for they bring in Robinson, who was supposed to be like that gritty inside player for them. Cloutier goes out, and they were playing defensive guys on offense and getting those guys to buy in. No doubt, I think this is the best coaching performance that we've seen from JT. And unfortunately, he wasn't up for a Coach of the Year award, but I think it's just because the Bandits, this is what they're supposed to do. They should be the best team in the East. They should get to the finals. So maybe there's a little bit of lost love for that reason, but no doubt what he was able to do with this offensive group, that is exactly what they needed this season, is a little bit of adversity, and they dealt with it. And I think a big reason why they were able to deal with it was because of how well these other players who stepped up in big moments were able to. And let's not forget, though, Josh Byrne was out as well, too. And Dane Smith, healthy all season long, was a big catalyst for that as well.
Okay, and I'm going to put you on the spot with this question. Who are you predicting to win the NLL Finals and MVP? And where can people watch the finals between Colorado and Buffalo on TV in the U.S. and Canada? And I know the Bandits games will be on WGR 550 with John Gerkler and Randy, and they will do their pregame show 30 minutes before as well. So it's great that their games are going to be on the radio and Odyssey.com. But just let my audience know about on television coverage.
Sure. Let's start with the coverage. Game 1, 2, and 3, all available on TSN in Canada. You can also get that on TSN Plus. In the US, Game 1, 7 p.m. start Eastern. That one will be on ESPN2. On ESPNU. Game 2, 4 p.m. start on Monday. You can get that one on ESPN2. And Game 3 right now only on ESPN Plus, but I think if it gets to that game, there's a good chance that we'll see it eventually be scheduled on one of the linears, whether it's ESPN2 or ESPNU. So, and for my predictions, oh boy, this one's tough. I could see the series go either way. I really do. I think, though, I want to say Buffalo gets over the hump. I think they do. I think it's going to be in 3 games, though. I think both teams are going to battle. I think both games, I wouldn't be surprised if we see each home team win. I think Buffalo takes game 1. Colorado takes game 2. Game 3, back in Buffalo. I think they get it done. Finals MVP, I'm going to say Matt Vince. I think Matt Vince is going to continue to elevate his game. That defense has been so stout. I think he's going to step up and go toe-to-toe with Dylan Ward. On the flip side, if Colorado wins, I think it's going to be Ward once again as the MVP. So I'm looking at goaltender regardless of who wins this. I think it's going to be the goaltender that's going to win it for them. And I'm just looking forward to it. Honestly, Chris, you can flip a coin. I think this one's so close, but I think this is finally the year the Bandits get it done and go over that hump.
I hope you're right as well. I agree with you. I think it could go either way. And I think home field advantage or home arena really between these two teams means nothing. And sometimes it's actually better to be the road team because the expectations when you're the home team is the pressure is even more than when you are the road team.
No doubt. I think you could kind of feel that in game 3 when Colorado came in and took it to Buffalo. The crowd was silent. They were taken out of it right away. So that's certainly a great point. But I think if you can start out hot and you can kind of weather that storm as an away team, Absolutely. It now then becomes a little bit of an advantage for you. But I just think with both passionate fan bases, if the home team can start hot and continue that momentum throughout the game, it does go into play. But I totally agree. Sometimes you grip the stick a bit too tight when you're at home.
Absolutely. And you see it in hockey and you see it in basketball as
Yeah.
well. So we'll see. I'm hoping to get to the game this Saturday as a media member, fingers crossed. But if I can't, I will be watching on TSN or listening to John and Randy on WGR 550, because I think those guys do a great job with the Bandits as well. And where can my audience follow you on social media, Pat? And just a little bit about Coolbet Canada, what's going on there right now.
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Twitter at pgreggy and Instagram at pgreggy22. Again, you can see me on TSN for all 3 games of the finals, and then obviously ESPN as well. Already plugged the pod, so we'll leave it at that, at OTCB_podcast, or follow and subscribe the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And for Coolbet Canada, yeah. If you are a fan of wagering on sports, you can check us out. Follow us at Coolbet Canada. That's on all platforms, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, we're there. We've got an awesome Coolbet promotion going on right now for the NLL finals. You can check it on our promotions tab. Spend $20 on an NLL game, get a $10 free bet. When you place that $20, you get a free $10 for the next week. And it doesn't have to be on an NLL game. It can be on any single sport, which there are a lot at Coolbet.
Are you guys doing CFL games this year as well?
Absolutely. Yes. We've had CFL for a couple of years now. We're back on it. You can find our futures, odds, everything there. So definitely check us out if you're a fan of the CFL.
Okay. Hey, before I let you go, quick thoughts on the Argonauts' new uniforms. Have you seen them yet?
Yes, I have, and I love them. They're absolute beauties. I'm a sucker for double blue. My dad went to St. Mike's, the school I went to down in the States. Our colors were double blue. So I've always had a soft spot for the Argos color scheme. I love it. I think that I like how they went back to the boat logo. I love how they've added more powder blue. And I like how I haven't gone through and read the details. I just honestly, before the show started, I pulled up a tweet, saw the pictures. They look great, but apparently there's some different parts of the jersey that go back to some of the history. And as you know, Chris, there's just so much history with the Toronto Argos, like so much history dating all the way back from when they started out as a rugby club. So I'm interested to kind of read through all those details and what each little thing means to the franchise, because there's no doubt there is so much history with that franchise.
Yeah, 150 years, and it's also their 40th anniversary of their 83 Grey Cup team that broke their 31-year Cup drought as well. And they're training in Guelph, so I've been able to cover the team and do some player interviews. And I also have a season ticket this year, so if I'm doing a game in the press box at BMO, I will let you know about my extra ticket I have.
Awesome, love to hear. I definitely got to get down to a game this year. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
It reminds me so much of the National Lacrosse League because it's Canadian, but the players are so accessible. The organizations are really good to work with, and I'm just lucky to be connected with them and the NLL and the National Basketball League of Canada. So right now I'm covering about 7 different sports, and I'm loving it. And doing these live interviews, Pat, as much as I love doing this as well, there's nothing better than when you talk to somebody in person.
Absolutely, no doubt. That's awesome. I've been following everything that you've been covering. It's great. You're a busy man, so stay busy. Busy is good. I know it gets a little bit hectic at times, but the more busy you are, that means the more reps you're getting and the more time you're putting in. So keep up the great work. Keep up the awesome work with your live stream as well. I always try to tune in as much as I can, and I am a little bit proud that I've got the record. So hopefully I can come on again. Continue to hold that throne, because I know there's a couple other guests that you've had on a few times that are probably getting close to my number.
Yes, Aaron Sanders, who does play-by-play for the
Yeah.
Windsor Express. He's a great guy, and I hope he gets his opportunity. And I just really love doing this show, Pat. And if you can give me a little bit of time this afternoon, I'll have this episode downloaded to my audio platforms, and I will let you know when it airs on WQEE 99.1 FM in Metro Atlanta. And they like my Canadian content as well. And I really appreciate you giving us some time today. And really looking forward to this NL finals, and fingers crossed I can attend game 1 in Buffalo Saturday night.
That would be great, Chris. If you are, let me know. I'll be there. So we'll have to bring in the booth, check out the booth, and we'll talk before, maybe even after the game as well. But again, Chris, thanks so much for having me, buddy. Enjoy the finals. Enjoy continuing grinding, man. Again, enjoy that. It's busy, but when you're covering sports, it's something that when you're happy to do your job, that's always a great thing.
Absolutely. And look forward to your broadcast with John Abbott and Ashley Docking. And is Teddy going to be a part of the broadcast as well?
I can't break any news, but you
Okay.
might see Teddy, let's just say maybe in that series at some point.
Okay. Well, I hope you guys have a great broadcast, and I just want to enjoy this series and look forward to it, Pat. Again, thank you so much for coming on season 6, episode 4 of Live with CDP Sports Talk today.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Pat, and have a great day.
You too, buddy.
Yeah. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed season 6, episode 4 today with my guest, Pat Gregoire. He's a manager with Quebec, Canada, and he's also a longtime color analyst with the Halifax Thunderbirds of the National Lacrosse League, and also he is an analyst with the TSN Game of the Week as well. So Saturday, May 27th at 7 o'clock, Game 1, Colorado, Buffalo. This is their rematch from last year where Colorado won in 3 games. And this is the 3rd time Colorado and Buffalo have met for the NL Finals. Colorado's won the first 2 meetings in 2006 and last year 2022 as well. If you can't get to the game at the KeyBank Center Saturday, you can watch it on TSN or ESPN Plus, or you can listen to it on WGR 550 in Buffalo or Odyssey.com with John Gerkler, the longtime Bandits radio play-by-play announcer, along with his color analyst Randy Means as well. Randy and John do a great job on the broadcast as well, guys. Before we wrap up this podcast show, guys, I'm going to show you guys a clip from my YouTube channel of my interview with Toronto Argonauts fullback Spencer Nichols, who is an alumni and a grad of the University of Western Ontario's Western Mustangs. Just one sec, guys. I'm going to play a little interview I did with him earlier this week at Alumni Stadium at the University of Guelph, where the Argonauts are having their training camp here in 2023. Here I'm at Alumni Stadium at the University of Guelph, where the CFL Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts are holding their training camp again here this year in 2023. And I have a special guest I'm going to do here. His name is Spencer Nichols. He's a fullback, and he was drafted from the Western Mustangs. Spencer, thoughts on your college career at Western and being drafted into the CFL by the Toronto Argonauts, the Grey Cup champions, by the way?
Yeah, the college career was awesome. I had a great time at Western. Loved the school. I'm from London, so I grew up around the team, watching the team. So it was a really easy decision to stay home and play for them. And being drafted here to the Argos is just a dream come true. We get to stay home close and come to a great organization like this. So I'm all happy, and I'm excited to get to work.
Thoughts on Greg Marshall, your head coach at Western?
Oh, a great coach. Hands down, probably one of the best football coaches that I've had, and probably one of the better men that I've met in my life. He's there for everyone on the team. No matter what you've been through, what your background is, he treats you like his own son, and it's just a great atmosphere there being with him.
It's a great school, and I remember the legendary Larry Haler as the head coach as well. So tremendous. How many years did you play at Western?
So I've just finished my 5th year, 4 years of football. I do have 1 year of eligibility left. Things got a little messed up because of COVID, so I had the year off there. But yeah, I got 1 year of eligibility left to finish off my 5-year.
What did you major at Western?
Majored in history, and I have a minor in sociology.
Okay. And what was it like the day in the CFL draft when they announced they were going to draft you to the Toronto Argonauts? What was that feeling like?
It was an amazing feeling. honestly wasn't expecting to go in the 4th round, so we were just kind of all talking around the TV, watching the rounds 3 to 8 go through on the TV, and my name popped up for the Argos, and I was around with some close friends of my family, and the room just turned to it was electric in there. Everyone was screaming, cheering, and it was just a really great night.
Favorite moment at Western, and what's your thoughts on the Argonauts training camp so far here at the University of Guelph?
Favorite moment at Western has to be winning the Vanier Cup versus Sask over in Laval. That was a crazy game, and just the overall season there was just the work and all the brothers around us. It was just a great overall year. And sorry, the second question?
Actually, I forgot. If I remember, I'll remember. Me bad on that.
No, yeah, that's my bad.
But fullback, did you have any mentors, and who were some of your favorite athletes when you were growing up, Spencer?
Yeah, just watching mentor through the CFL. We have Dave Mackey, an old Western fullback. He's been over in BC, and he's just been tearing up the league. So it's been a guy I've been kind of watching, and when he comes back over the off season, I've got some training in with him. So I'm pretty familiar with his gameplay, and I'd like to hopefully follow his footsteps in his career.
And just quick thoughts on Ryan Dinwiddie and the Toronto Argonauts organization so far.
So far, it's been awesome. Just meeting them in the meetings and seeing them on the field and how they interact with all the guys here. It seems like a great atmosphere, and I couldn't be happier to be here with the Argos.
You're wearing 73 for training camp, but what number did you wear at Western, and what's your favorite number? And is there a story behind your number?
Yeah, I wore 88 at Western. My first number, I was an offensive lineman growing up, and I wore 58 all the way through. So I kind of transferred that 8 over to 88 into their fullback tight end game. So I was wearing 88 there. Repping 73 right now is my rookie number, and I'm fine with it. I like it. I'm good with whatever they give me. So
okay. Well, Spencer, I want to say thank you so much for doing this. And I want to say congratulations on getting drafted by the Toronto Argonauts. And I want to wish you and the team all the success this season and trying to repeat as Grey Cup champions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Spencer.
Thank you.
That clip was courtesy of my YouTube channel, Chris Palme, live with CDP Sports Talk. Thank you to those who have subscribed. If you haven't, please subscribe and hit the like notification as well. The Toronto Argonauts this week, they had their blue and white scrimmage. I was there yesterday. Today, no practice. Wednesday and Thursday, they have practices from 9:40 to 12:10. Friday, there's no practice. And then Saturday, the Argos' first preseason game at Hamilton at 4 p.m. If you can't get down to Tim Hortons Field Saturday at 4, you can watch it live stream through the argonauts.ca. And the Argonauts released their new 2023 uniforms today. They're Oxford powder blue. I think they're beautiful uniforms. So check them out on argonauts.ca or all those social media pages. Again, thank you to Chris Bilnovich, the manager of football media for the Toronto Argonauts, for letting me interview Spencer Nichols, Ben Holmes, Mike Pinball Clements, and Curly Gittins Jr. And I will air the Curly Gittins Jr. interview I did this week on my next episode, which is this Friday as well. And I'm looking forward to this episode on Friday, May 26th. Friday, May 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern. My guest is Jessica Benish. She's an Agile coach, which is a project manager professional that scales Agile practices across a team or an organization or workplace. So I hope you guys can tune in this Friday at 11 a.m. with Jessica Benish, my guest, and it's going to be a good show with her as well. That'll be season 6, episode 5. And again, I want to say thank you to Pat Gregoire for coming on episode number 278 today. That's 7th time for Pat. He's a great guest, great guy, and really enjoyed talking National Lacrosse League as well. I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter as well, guys. And I'm going to wrap this show up shortly as well. But just wanted to let you guys know, Live with CDP Sports Talk is a weekly sports and entertainment talk show hosted by yours truly, Chris Palme, is always on weeknights at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports talk and the heartbeat of Atlanta as well. Finally, Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet, spring into summer at Barry Cullen dealership with a 2023 Chevy Equinox at 3.99% financing for up to 60 months. Eligible Costco members can receive a $750 bonus on select SUVs as well. And I'm still loving my 2023 Chevy Trailblazer RS Sports model. I think it's a great vehicle. And also check out, if you're looking for a vehicle at Barry Cullen Chevrolet, check out Nathan Laud as well, who sold me my vehicle. He's very knowledgeable about the GM vehicles, and he's a good guy as well. And like I said, I'm just loving my Trailblazer as well. So hope you guys can check out Barry Cullen Chevrolet again, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. And special thank you to Mark Cullen for sponsoring this podcast show as well. Finally, guys, Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Stitcher, and Tuned In. And again, weeknights at 8 on WQEE 99.1 FM in Metro Atlanta. And guys, again tonight you got Vegas at Dallas. Vegas is up 2-0 in the Western Conference Final, and Florida won last night, 1-0 over Carolina. So Florida is now up 3-0 in that series. And last night, Denver defeated the Lakers, swept them. So Denver is going to their first NBA Finals in their 47-year history, and they will most likely take on the Miami Heat, who are taking on the Celtics tonight in Game 4 at 8:30 in Miami. And I predict it's going to be a Denver-Miami NBA Finals, unless Boston can become the first team in NBA history to come back from 0-3, which I highly doubt as well. Again, congratulations to Teddy Jenner for winning the Tom Borelli Award for the Media Person of the Year for the National Lacrosse League as well. And finally, guys, the National Basketball League of Canada Finals Game 3 is tonight, 7 o'clock at the WFCU Center in Windsor, Ontario. If you can't get down to the game, you can watch it live streamed at 7 o'clock tip-off on NBLC TV with Aaron Sanders, the longtime voice of the Windsor Express, along with Drake Damore, his color analyst as well. I was in London for Game 2, where the Lightning evened up the series at 1-1 with a big 124-107 win over the Express. So tune in tonight to NBLC TV at 7 p.m. if you can't get down to Windsor WFCU Center as well. And I expect a great game tonight. That best-of-5 series is tied at 1-1. Again, guys, I want to say thank you to Pat Gregoire for coming on here today and talking some National Lacrosse League and previewing the finals between the Bandits and the Colorado Mammoths, the defending champions, which starts this Saturday at 7 o'clock at the KeyBank Center. Game 2 is Monday afternoon, May 29th at 4 o'clock at the it used to be the McNichols Arena or the Bell Arena, the Ball Center, I believe, the Ball Center in Denver, Colorado as well. So really looking forward to that, guys. I will keep you updated, but I hope everybody has a great afternoon, great evening, and we'll see you for Season 6, Episode 5 of Live with CDP Sports Talk on Friday, May 26th, again at 11 a.m. with my guest, Jessica Benish. As well. She's based out of Switzerland. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Jessica as well. So, all right. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, great week, and we'll see you guys Friday at 11 a.m. for another edition of Live with CDP Sports Talk. Again, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph and also on WQEE 99.1 FM in Georgia. Have a great afternoon, everyone, and we'll see you guys Friday morning at 11 a.m. with Jessica Bench.